Now, this latest tariff threat is also a serious concern in Alberta. Well, energy is our largest export to the United States. Alberta beef and dairy producers are also potentially at risk.
The global beef trade is changing, and the United States is losing ground fast. For over a decade, American ranchers steadily expanded their footprint in China, the world's fastest-growing protein market. But in early 2025, that door began to close.
China is expected to buy more beef from Australia as trade uncertainty continues to affect international beef markets.
Tara, beef and dairy are related industries, but there are many differences. Still, the threat of a 35% tariff on Canadian exports is unsettling for many Alberta ranchers and farmers.
The prospect of a 25% reciprocal U.S. tariff on Korean goods starting August 1st is putting the pressure on Seoul. In a briefing earlier this week, Trade Minister Yohan Gu suggested strategic decisions may be needed.
China abruptly halted over 150,000 tons of U.S. beef imports. Officially, it was about safety standards. Unofficially, it was retaliation. The move followed the United States' announcement of new tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles.
The United States adopted a very shocking decision to levy a 100% tariff on EV cars produced in China.
Within weeks, the consequences rippled across feedlots, cold storage facilities, and rail yards from Texas to Nebraska. U.S. beef exports worth over $500 million were cancelled or diverted, contracts collapsed, ranchers faced oversupply, and prices fell. YouTube is not the biggest fan of content like this, but we believe people deserve to hear the truth. If you agree, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us beat the algorithm and keep going. We really appreciate the support. According to trade analysts, China's inspections of American beef at ports intensified shortly after the tariff escalation. While Chinese officials cited regulatory concerns, policy experts saw a clear pattern. Agricultural trade used as a pressure point in a broader economic conflict. By 2024, the US had become one of China's top beef suppliers, shipping over $1.2 billion in product. Losing that market overnight struck a direct blow to states like Kansas, Nebraska, and Texas, where beef is not just an export, but a way of life. One Nebraska rancher summed it up: "We're sitting on inventory with nowhere to send it, months of planning gone in a week." And while US producers were left scrambling, Russia stepped in. In just the first quarter of 2025, Russian beef exports to China surged more than 300%. Years of behind-the-scenes diplomacy paid off. In 2023, China and Russia signed agreements streamlining food safety certifications and easing logistics. Rail corridors built under the Belt and Road Initiative now run from Russian slaughterhouses to Western Chinese cities, slashing shipping times. Payments are made in yuan or rubles, bypassing US dollars entirely. Russia is not just reacting, it is positioning. A $1.1 billion government investment aims to double Russian beef production by 2027. Large-scale farms are under construction. Beijing is supporting the expansion with long-term purchase agreements. Even as questions persist about Russian food safety standards, the geopolitical alignment has made China's preference clear. Meanwhile, other traditional beef suppliers, Australia and Argentina, face their own instability. Australia is still recovering from drought and trade friction. Argentina's inflation makes pricing erratic. China wants consistency. Russia is offering it. In March 2025, China went further. New tariffs targeted over 700 US agricultural products. Pork, dairy, sorghum, almonds, all hit with 10 to 15% duties. The impact? More than $11 billion in US farm exports affected. And China did not stop there. Hundreds of US beef plant export registrations quietly expired. No renewals. That effectively ended US access to Chinese markets by early April. Simultaneously, Beijing launched an investigation into global beef imports dating back to 2019. If oversupply is proven, further restrictions or quotas could follow, impacting Brazil, Australia, Uruguay, and the US. This is not tit for tat. It is systemic realignment. In 2022, the US held over 12% of China's imported beef market. Today, that figure is below 6%. Economists warn it may never recover. Why? Because China is rebuilding its supply chains for political alignment, not just efficiency. Food is now a tool of soft power, and beef is the currency. Beijing's partnerships with Russia, Kazakhstan, and even parts of South America now include long-term supply deals settled in local currencies. Logistics routes are shifting, cold chains are adapting, plant registrations are tied not only to safety, but to geopolitical confidence. Even US allies are recalibrating. Brazil has deepened ties with China across soy and grain.
Soybeans are typically the U.S. commodity purchased by China most heavily. It's being reported that China continues to buy Brazilian soybeans at an even faster pace versus last year.
Europe is exploring joint food security agreements. American exporters now face layered barriers: regulatory, financial, and diplomatic. And it is not just about exports. China is also building internal capacity. In 2024, domestic beef production rose more than 5%. State investment is flooding into Inner Mongolia and Sichuan. China's goal is twofold: reduce dependence on volatile exporters and reward nations that align with its broader strategic aims. Russia's rise in the beef trade was not accidental. It is being architected. Seized former Western assets like Glav Product are now exporting canned goods to China and North Korea. Peas, wheat, and beef, once peripheral exports, are now central to Russia's new economic strategy. Over 95% of China-Russia trade is now settled in yuan and rubles. The dollar has vanished from their transactions. For the United States, this shift presents a deeper threat. It is not just a matter of lost revenue, it is lost influence. US exporters cannot simply wait for tariffs to lift. The infrastructure of global trade, rail corridors, cold storage hubs, local currency systems, is being rebuilt without them. To re-enter, America will need to adapt on multiple fronts: new financial systems, renewed diplomatic trust, compliance with shifting safety regimes, and possibly strategic alignment. That is a high bar. This is not just about beef. Sorghum, wheat, pork, and almonds are now caught in the same storm. With over $21 billion in tariffs on US agriculture alone, American producers face a shrinking global market. And with China locking in long-term contracts across Eurasia, the recovery window is closing. Trade is no longer transactional, it is strategic. And every new corridor, every yuan-based contract, pushes the US further to the margins. But there is still time to act. The US can re-engage through trade frameworks, invest in diplomatic repair, and forge alliances in Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America. It can update its logistics and payment systems. It can build resilience. Because what is at stake is not just market share, it is the ability to shape the global food system. The Belt and Road rail lines are not just steel tracks, they are arteries of influence. From Russia's frozen tundra to inland China, these trains now deliver not only goods, but political trust. The US, meanwhile, is seeing key agreements expire. Phase 1 trade deal provisions have lapsed. Export plant certifications are no longer valid. Financial settlements are hindered by dependence on dollar-based mechanisms that many trading partners are beginning to avoid. In Latin America, similar dynamics are unfolding. Brazil and Argentina are in talks to settle trade in yuan. Uruguay's agricultural shipments to China are now bundled with finance agreements that exclude the dollar entirely. The implications reach far beyond agriculture. Currency independence and bilateral trade corridors are emerging as new pillars of global commerce. The United States, once the default trading hub, is now being asked to adjust to a multipolar world. The question is, can it? In the American Midwest, where ranchers are watching their cattle age out without export buyers, the answer will shape livelihoods for years to come. In ports from Houston to Long Beach, shipments sit idle, waiting on contracts that may never be renewed. In Washington, lawmakers argue over trade terms while other nations finalize long-term deals. This is not just about policy, it is about pace. The countries that move quickly to lock in partnerships, align currency frameworks, and streamline logistics will lead the next chapter of global food trade. The United States, with its rich agricultural capacity and history of innovation, still has the tools. But tools are only useful when they are used, and in today's world, speed matters as much as scale. Let us know what you think in the comments. And do not forget to subscribe to Auto News and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest political economic updates.